This is episode 2 of The Lies the Spiritual Industry Has Sold Us. And today we're going to talk about one of those lies. What if I told you one of the biggest lies the spiritual industry ever sold us wasn't a teaching at all? It was an image, an identity, a hierarchy, an image of what spirituality was supposed to look like, an identity of who we believed we needed to become, and a hierarchy that quietly convinced us some people were somehow more spiritual, more awakened, or closer to God than the rest of us. Somewhere along the way, many of us began believing that spiritual growth had levels, that if we followed the right teacher, learned the right practices, and kept reaching for that next level, we'd eventually arrive at some higher place where everything would finally make sense. There was always another step, another level, another invitation. Come to up level with me. Not because learning is wrong, because I love learning. Some of the greatest growth in my life has come from incredible teachers who genuinely cared about helping others, not just about making money. But somewhere along the way, I noticed something. Before I'd even had time to live what I'd just learned, I was already being shown the next mountain to climb. The message was subtle, but it was powerful, and it was really just kind of telling you, you're doing great, but you're not quite there yet. And after hearing that enough times, I started wondering, when do we ever get there? I'm in my 60s now, and I found myself asking, will I ever get there? Or will there always be another level, another practice, another experience, another version of myself I'm supposed to become before I'm finally enough? And that's the conversation I want to have with you today. Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to Divine Angelic Guidance, where spirituality meets midlife rediscovery. My name is Michelle Irene Stupsky. I am a certified spiritual life coach, an author, speaker, and fellow traveler on this spiritual journey. In every episode, we explore spirituality through a different perspective, not to tell you what to believe, but to invite you to look at life differently and discover what feels true within your own heart. Before we begin, if these conversations encourage you in one way, shape, or form, I'd be so grateful if you'd follow the podcast and leave a review. It really helps these messages reach more people. And if someone comes to mind while you're listening today, I hope you'll share this episode with them as well. The last episode, we talked about the lie that we're broken. Today, I think we're uncovering the lie that keeps that belief alive. Because if I believe I'm not enough, then of course, I'll keep looking for that next thing that promises to make me enough. Please hear me when I say this. I am not against spiritual teachers because I am one, and I'm not against retreats or workshops or big events because I host those. I love meditation, yoga, crystals, oracle cards, energy healing, journaling, all those beautiful practices that have helped millions, including myself, reconnect with myself. I've participated in most of them. I've learned from extraordinary teachers. And some of those experiences did change my life. And I don't regret any of those experiences for a second. But I do regret one thing, that somewhere along the journey, I stopped noticing that quiet voice within me because I became so focused on listening to everyone else's. I started believing that someone else's connection to the divine must somehow be stronger than mine. Not because anyone said those exact words, but because that's what the system quietly taught us. The teacher was on stage. I was in the audience. They were the expert. I was the student. They were leading. I was following. And none of that is wrong until we begin believing that the teacher has access to something that we never will. And I think that's where the hierarchy begins. It isn't always spoken. Sometimes it's simply implied. If I meditate like them, maybe I'll become more spiritual. If I dress like them, maybe I'll become more spiritual. If I attend enough events, maybe I'll be more spiritual. If I learn one more technique, maybe I'll finally arrive. And without realizing it, spirituality slowly becomes another form of self-improvement instead of a relationship with the divine. I remember leaving events completely inspired. My heart was open, my mind was expanded, and I had pages and pages of notes, and I couldn't wait to integrate everything that I'd learned. And then, before I even had the opportunity to live those teachings, the invitation came. Here's the next level. Here's the more advanced program. Here's what's next. Again, I don't believe those invitations came from bad intentions. Many teachers genuinely wanted to continue serving. I get it. We'll talk more about the business side of spirituality in another episode, because I think that's an important conversation too. But today, I want to stay with something much more personal. What did those invitations begin teaching me about myself? And without realizing it, I started believing that where I wasn't enough, that what I'd learned wasn't quite enough, that I wasn't enough. Yeah. There was always another mountain, as that song from Miley Cyrus begins going in my head right now. There was always another summit, another place that I was supposed to reach. And one day I stopped and asked myself, what happens if I never get there? That question changed everything, because what if there isn't a finish line? What if spirituality was never designed to be a ladder? What if it was always meant to be a relationship? Relationships don't have levels, they have depth. The deeper my relationship with God became, the less interested I became in appearing spiritual. The deeper my relationships with the divine became, the less I needed someone else to validate where I was on my journey. And that's when I realized something profound. The missing piece I'd been searching for wasn't another teacher. It wasn't another practice. It wasn't another spiritual identity. The missing piece was trust. Trust that God and my angels are present with me while I'm folding laundry, when I'm sitting in a meditation, and trust that my angels don't only show up at retreats, that they walk beside me in the grocery store. The trust that I don't have to earn a deeper connection with the divine. I simply have to become more aware of the one that I already have. That is why my latest book, You Weren't Born to Fit In, feels so tender. I was led through trust, not gratification. I recently shared an episode called The Missing Piece Nobody Talks About on the podcast. And looking back, I realized this conversation has always been leading us to here. The missing piece was never outside of us. It wasn't waiting at the next event or inside the next technique. And I know you've heard me say that before, but it's hidden in someone else's wisdom. The missing piece is remembering that we already have a direct relationship with the divine. Teachers can help us strengthen that relationship for sure. And practices most definitely can help us deepen the relationship. Communities can help us nurture that, but none of them can replace it. To me, that's what authentic spiritual leadership looks like. Not creating lifelong dependence, creating lifelong confidence, not making people believe they'll always need you, helping them trust that God has been speaking to them all along. That's the kind of teacher I am. The reminder, you never walk this journey alone. I've been saying it for 22 years, and I'll say it for another 22 more, and then 22 more after that. I'm not someone who tells you what to think. I'm not someone who tells you exactly what to do. I'll give you ideas to try. I'll give you thought-provoking questions and meditations. I'm someone who occasionally offers a different perspective and gently reminds you to trust the wisdom already living within your soul. So next episode, we'll continue this series with the lie that you have to earn spirituality. We'll explore why so many of us have come to believe that we need to meditate longer, practice harder, perform better, or somehow prove ourselves worthy of God's love and our angels' presence in our life. Until then, remember, someone is always with you, watching over you, guiding you. You are never alone. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself, trust the wisdom within, and keep following the quiet light that has always been leading you home. And the reason I'm smiling while I'm saying that is that we are in the midst of a thunderstorm. And as I began to say, you are never alone, the thunder and the lightning were right on cue. I love when that stuff happens. Thanks for listening. Have a great one.